Ladies and germs, as you can see, the introduction to this video is on a moving vehicle. And we're on our way to a special location for episode 44 of the Graveyard Ramblings. If I sound animated, it's probably these gummies I'm on. And this is going to be a festive edition from the biggest location that we've ever filmed from. Stay tuned. Welcome to Brookwood and this week's episode of the Graveyard Ramblings. Brookwood Station has its own entrance straight into the cemetery. And this was the site from which the Victorians used to bring their dead from Waterloo Necropolis Station down into the cemetery here at Brookwood. Now, as usual, I prefer to do things on a little scale from the cemetery in the village. But here happens to be the biggest cemetery in the United Kingdom. It's massive. It's almost 212 square miles and millions of people interred, as we will find out in a minute. And it's also right next to the operating railway. In fact, some of it's still there, look. So, as you come out of the station entrance into the cemetery, this section here would have been where the railway came down to bring probably, I don't know, people of a higher class, something like that. And it came down here, and the cemetery, beautifully kept as it is today, continues over the road to the old bit, and we're going to go there in a minute. And if you look round, my lovely cameraman is just going to show you that they've even created this pathway going down here with some old railway crossing gates at the end. Well, I'm standing here like Marty out of Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, because this is the first postbox I've ever seen, active postbox, in a cemetery. And as you can see, letters to heaven. And the lovely people here at Brookwood have this box here so that people can send letters to their dearly departed and their loved ones, and they are kept sealed, unopened, and passed on to the heavens, or presumably, although it's a white box, I suppose if they were sending a letter to someone who'd gone down there, it would be another colour. I'll have to see if I can find that one. But it's rather nice, isn't it? I rather like this idea. I wonder if there's one for Father Christmas here too. On the south side of the cemetery now, I'm going towards the old bit, because there's somebody that I particularly want to find here, which links back to the previous episode that I did over in Paris. And here is probably one of the most impressive tree-infested graves I think I've ever seen. It's utterly unbelievable. Huge great things thrusting up through the ground. And excuse me, but just look at the size of that trunk. Fabulous. One of the things that strikes me about this place, it's quite different from everywhere, especially the one in the village, is how vast it is. And the cemetery opened, or was planned, I think, in about 1852, something like that. And they bought up about 3,200 acres to take over for the burial of people from central London down to here. And I think the cemetery ended up being about 350 acres. And when you walk through here, one of the things is how vast and open and spread out it all is. And then my lovely cameraman, Paul, said to me, it's near to Horsell Common, which of course, you see, it all fits, doesn't it? That's where the War of the Worlds is, where the Martians landed in War of the Worlds, Horsell Common, and probably many of them are buried here to this very day. And here, of course, is one of the graves of the Martians that landed on Horsell Common, look. Nice little Martian monument in the middle there. So, when we were in Père Lachaise in Paris, you might remember me saying that how it over-Gothicked everything. It was Gothic upon Gothic. And their erections were absolutely magnificent. when you come here, you notice two things. First of all, how spread out everything is, like I just said. And secondly, how some of the mausoleums are perhaps a little bit less impressive than the ones we've seen in Paris. Like this one, for example, which looks like it was bought in B&Q. And resembles, as my friend Paul said, those huts that you see by the side of the railway. Then amongst all the cruddy ones, you suddenly come across something like this, which is really rather sweet and rather poignant. Look at that beautiful little statuette, just sitting there calmly on that grave. Very sad. Before we get on to the person who I really wanted to see here, and let's face it, it would be quite some video if we actually did end up seeing him. But before we get there, I just thought I'd make it a bit more festive, because this is coming up, it's now 2 weeks before Christmas, something like that, and I thought we should analyse a little bit about what Christmas means, because it's much more than the famous carol, "While shepherds wash their socks at night, all seated round a tub, the angel of the Lord came down and took them up the pub." One of my favourite carols, Christmas carols, what we used to sing at school. It's much more than that. It's when the baby Jesus was born in a manger, because they couldn't find anywhere to stay. Everywhere was booked up because it was Christmas, and they hadn't thought and booked ahead. They could have got a Travelodge or a Premier Inn or something like that. Did they bog roll? It was packed out. So they had to make do with a manger. And I was talking to my lovely cameraman Paul on the way down, and I said to him, where exactly was the baby Jesus born? And we couldn't fathom out whether it was Bethlehem, Nazareth or Jerusalem. One of the three. And when the kiddies do their nativities, and some of them get to play, I'm not quite sure who I played. I think I played a bus driver in mine. I'm not entirely sure. But in some versions of it, there's three kings. In some versions of it, there's three shepherds. I mean, it's all over the place, quite frankly. And they really need to get this sorted out, because you're interfering with children's minds, really, if you can't make up your mind where something happened or why they didn't actually manage to get themselves into a decent hotel at that time of year. So Christmas is coming up, and now we really will go and see if I can find the final resting place of one of my huge heroes, whose work I saw in its glory at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris in the last episode. So this is the person whose final resting place I was so keen to see here at Brookwood, and it is the grave of Sir John Singer Sargent. And I went to the exhibition of his fabulous paintings, of which I'm a huge fan. I don't own any yet, but I need to marry rich in order to be able to afford one. Beautiful, beautiful paintings, some of which are my favourite ever. And his final resting place here is a little bit on the understated side, I think, given just how famous he is, how important he is in the world of art. Bless him. Died on April the 15th, 1925. John Singer Sargent. It's quite interesting that compared to the Gothicness of Père Lachaise in Paris, and you might remember me saying, for those of you that have seen the previous Graveyard Ramblings, that they had a habit there of leaving the doors to their mausoleums open. Probably not the wisest thing to have done at the time to stop it from being robbed, but It's very unusual to see that happen here in the UK. Most of them seem to be locked up because the Brits, you know, we like our privacy, don't we? But this one's very interesting. This one has actually been sort of opened, and I don't know if I can squeeze in, but yes, you can see the slots where the coffins would have once been inside there. It's very beautiful still, despite all of that. A bit of stained glass and a bit of repair and it will come up lovely. And that about wraps up our little trip to Brookwood. The size of this, I just can't get over how vast this place is. And in fact, if you look down here, down the avenue behind me, you can see the sheer magnitude of this place is breathtaking. 350 square acres, or whatever the term is, which is the size of at least 2 Olympic swimming pools. And on that cheery note, I shall leave you with some pictures that me and my lovely cameraman Paul, thank you Paul, have taken while we've been here, over a little bit of appropriate music for the festering season, and I shall see you in the next episode. Till then, salute!
Thank you.